In India, a huge second wave of COVID-19 swept through the country. Thousands died. Crematoriums to burn the dead were overwhelmed by the numbers. They held mass cremations. Sometimes people had to make do and burn their relatives' bodies where they could. Ceremonies were rushed and sometimes makeshift. They continued into the night. One crematorium worker tells DW's Nimisha Jaiswal his story.
Rajesh Ujala is done with his hospital shift for the day. Working in patient care is demanding, but manageable, he says. It is a far cry from the 18 months he spent working in the mortuary through the worst of the pandemic here. Ujala has only worked 2 years in healthcare. In another life, he was a performance artist. Ujala says he took to the stage at the age of 10 and loved every bit of it. As an organizer, makeup artist, and dancer. All of this came to a standstill when the pandemic hit and Ujala needed work. When a friend refused to work in the mortuary of Delhi's biggest coronavirus hospital, Ujala stepped in. During the second wave, he recounts losing track of the number of bodies coming in, piled into ambulances. Ujala worked frantically to provide dignity to the victims' families in the chaos. There was no end to his shifts.
In a space for 100 bodies, there were 200 or 300, piled one on top of the other. And my job was to sort through these, identify and mark them. That was the worst day of my life.
And then it got worse. Ujala's younger brother took ill. Ujala pleaded for a bed at the overwhelmed hospital he worked at, but it was too late. His brother fought for life for 5 days. Days in which Ujala wasn't given the time off to visit him. Kamlesh, Ujala's mother, worried endlessly when he started working in the crematorium. Losing her youngest compounded her fears.
I never imagined this would happen to me. The second coronavirus wave will haunt me till the day I die. I'm still terrified. I have only 2 children left. I just want them to be safe. I just want to spend my last years with them.
Experts say that the second wave, however, may be a key reason why cases are currently low in India. Tests show that coronavirus antibodies have been found in large sections of the Indian population, essentially acting like an additional vaccine dose. This could blunt the rise in cases expected with Omicron here.
Hybrid immunity, which essentially means a natural infection followed by vaccination, provides as good a protection as 3 shots of vaccines. And that is a reason enough to believe that the Indian population is right now protected. In the future, it might require vaccine booster.
Ujala is already seeing Omicron cases rise in his hospital and doesn't expect to return to the stage anytime soon. His hopes for 2022 are far simpler. He wants to come home on time and sit without a mask with his family. He suspects that even this, though, may be too ambitious.
Some extraordinary images there. For more, let's bring in DW correspondent Nimisha Jaiswal in New Delhi. Nimisha, as we were just reminded in your report, this was a very tough year for India. And though the silver lining may be that there is much hybrid immunity, authorities can't ignore that Omicron cases are on the rise. What's the government doing about this?
Well, Michael, the Indian government has responded fast to when the Omicron variant was first announced. Very quickly, new restrictions and guidelines were imposed on international travel, including stricter norms for both testing and isolation. Now, with cases nearing 600 in Omicron alone, the Indian government has also announced that different states are going to impose night curfews depending on the caseload that they are facing themselves. Now, some states have also announced restrictions on the capacities of spas, malls, restaurants. New Year and Christmas celebrations are also likely to be impacted, especially in big cities like Delhi and Mumbai.
You know, I'm curious, how are Indians themselves currently responding to the Omicron threat, especially after this devastating COVID-19 year for them?
Well, the second wave was definitely devastating, Michael, but over the last 6 months, India has seen a lower caseload, and this has eased off COVID appropriate behavior and has also allowed for people to come out more. Restrictions have been almost completely lifted before these new recent restrictions related to Omicron. We saw massive crowds at markets and restaurants and shopping areas during India's festive season in November, and it continued into Christmas and the New Year as well. People are, of course, very apprehensive about new restrictions and lockdowns, especially as it impacted business immensely. But of course, even if the people are not ready to take up COVID appropriate behavior yet, the government's moves will be a different story.
After having to deal with up to 500,000 deaths by the coronavirus so far, what's the progress on vaccinations?
India's progress on the vaccination front has had its peaks and troughs, but overall, 60% of the eligible population, which is all adults, have been completely vaccinated. 90% people have at least gotten one dose of the adults that are eligible. In a Christmas address, the Prime Minister also announced that starting on the 3rd of January, children from the ages of 15 to 18 will also start getting vaccinated. Boosters have also been announced for healthcare workers as well as for those above 60 who are vulnerable, and the scope of these will continue to be increased. However, India has only got the viral vector vaccinations and no mRNA vaccinations, which are considered to be better for a third dose. More on this from experts in the government, of course, as the new year progresses.
Many, many thanks. That is DW correspondent Nimisha Jaiswal in New Delhi.